Hi there, Kagetsuna here. A lot of you may know me, a lot of you may not. That's okay. I thank you all the same for coming and trying to watch this video. I admit in advance it may get a little rambly at sometimes. I also give you the very serious warning that it will contain offensive language. It's not meant to be malicious. It's just meant for educational purposes, hopefully. Um, so, that being said, um, there are a lot of racial slurs in the world. Um, they are words that are intended to hurt. They are intended to devalue a person. They are intended to offend. Um, so yeah, they are agreeably very terrible words. Every race has a racial slur. If you're white, you can be a cracker, or you can be a honky. If you're Arabian, you can be a raghead. Um, there are tons and tons of racial slurs in the world. They're all terrible. But the one that I want to focus on today, since it seems to be getting a lot more attention in my part of the world, is the word nigger. I hate this word. But I will admit that it has a very, very long history. Originally, nigger did not mean what it means today. Well, I suppose that's not true because it does and it doesn't mean the same thing as it did. Originally, the word nigger meant that you were a very ignorant, uneducated person. This was many, many moons ago. In the land time forgot, but not entirely. So, a lot of people these days know the modern definition of the word nigger, which is a derogatory term used solely for African Americans. So, back during the time when equality was a thing never mentioned, black people were only known as niggers. Every single African American person that you came across was a nigger. It didn't matter if you could read. It didn't matter if you had any kind of education whatsoever. If you were black, you were a nigger. And that, perpetuated for literally centuries. I can't even remember when Africans were originally brought over. Probably start somewhere in the 1600s, 1700s. They were originally brought over here, and this perpetuated for centuries. Even still today, people still use that word. People still believe that some African Americans are niggers. Not everyone, thank God, but most people. Well, no, some people do. So you can imagine how some people might be offended by that. To have someone, just assume just by seeing the color of your skin, you're an ignorant person. I mean, who wouldn't be offended by that? So that's part of the reason why the word nigger is so offensive to black people. Admittedly, it's not the only reason, but that's a large part of it. And now that word has become, solely our kind of derogatory term. There's no such, well, I won't say there's no such thing as it, but, you hardly ever hear of a white person or a Mexican person or I shouldn't say Mexican, I should say Latino or Latina person, or a European person, or an Asian person known as a nigger. Admittedly, it's just become a very terrible word because of that history that's been attributed to it. And speaking of history, I realize that some people will make the argument that, well, I don't use the word nigger, I use the word nigga, so it's okay. No, it's not. The word nigga, as far as what I can glean from the research that I've done, is that it was a word that was created probably in the 80s or 90s in an attempt to take that word back and to make it into a word that was that had a new definition, one that was more acceptable. Yeah. Unfortunately, that word has become now synonymous with ghetto culture. It perpetuates the stereotype of that has been perpetuated by the rap industry, by a lot of what we see on television. People that are drug dealers, people that abuse women, people that have all these children, and then they end up not being able to take care of them properly. Just that kind of culture that, nobody really wants attributed to them, because not all black people, live that way. We're not all welfare people, or we're not all gang members, or we're not all unwed teen mothers with 5 children. And there are people that learn. I mean, I'm the product of a single mother. I know single mothers that do have 5 children, and they've raised all 5 of those children well. They've all gone through college, and they're all getting degrees. I mean, but the fact remains that the word nigga, that's what that's attributed to, back into the ghetto culture. And that's another reason why that world is so terrible, because we as people are so much better than that. We're capable of so much more. So that word kind of glorifies ghetto culture, and it's not necessarily something to be proud of, is the problem. Now, some people make the argument that, well, they're just words. Words can't hurt you. You shouldn't be offended by words. If you're offended, then racism still exists. Racism would still exist even if I wasn't offended. It is 2013, about to be 2014, and equality is still not existent. Be it between races, be it between genders, be it between economical status. Equality still doesn't exist. So saying that words can't hurt is also a really lame excuse. It's an attempt to brush off by saying, oh, I live in America, I can say whatever the hell I want. Yay, First Amendment. It doesn't make you any less... It doesn't make it okay. Because you're still perpetuating a stereotype. You're still perpetuating hatred. Because that's what those words are born from. They're born from hatred. And hatred and misunderstanding and somewhat willful ignorance. So that's why those words are not okay. That's why they need to be... we need to stop using them. I'm not sure if you're aware, but actually the NAACP held a funeral in 2009, I believe it was, for the word nigger. They put it to rest. They said, we're not using this word anymore. We as a race should not use this word anymore. That's how terrible it is. No one listened to them, But the fact of the matter is, they held these funerals in several major cities in the U.S. in order to try and put a stop to perpetuating this thing. That's how bad it is. And nigga, since it was born from the word nigger, it just, it doesn't change anything. It might be a word, but it's still a word born from hatred. You hold some hate in your heart to use that word. That's why it's so bad. I mean, yeah. I kind of hate myself for having used it so many times in this video. But, largely what I'm trying to say here is that you shouldn't use it because there are so many other words that you can use. There are literally hundreds of thousands of words in the human language that you can use to get your point across. And yet you choose to use one of the most hurtful, hateful words that we've ever evolved into what it's used for today. You're better than that. You are. And I think that people should realize that they can be held responsible for what comes out of their mouth. The First Amendment only goes so far. You just have to realize, words can hurt. I mean, how many times have you heard on the news these days that somebody's killed themselves because they were literally bullied to death? There was that girl that jumped off of a water tower because she was being bullied over the internet. How many other people have killed themselves because of words? I mean, you see it all the time, even on Tumblr. People getting anonymous messages from people like, you should go drink bleach and die. And some people have done it because they've been so terribly depressed. Words can hurt. Words can kill. So that's why I hate that word. Because, again, it's born from hatred. It is a reminder of a very, very dark time in our nation's history, in our race's history. And that's why I don't condone the use of it. So, hopefully, everyone realizes a little bit of why I'm offended by it, why it's a terrible word in general. I'm not saying don't use it because I don't control you. It's up to you whether you want to use it or not, but I hope you don't. So yeah, please stop using that word. It's a terrible, terrible word. Please stop using racial slurs in general. Have a little love in your heart. Try to promote good things and, stop perpetuating all of these terrible, terrible things that have happened in our world's history. Just stop. Stop.